Hello and welcome to the fourth in our series of basic Pilates principles. Today we're looking at our transverse abdominis muscle. So that is what we would generally know as the core. As talked about previously, the core is actually made up of four muscles. The diaphragm, which we visited in our series 2. The pelvic floor we visited in our last session. Multifidus, which is a muscle that runs up either side of the spine, and our transverse abdominis. So transverse abdominis is a bit like a corset muscle, so it sits around your abdominals here, but it's in a really deep layer, so it's underneath those six-pack superficial muscles that help us do those crunches. Okay, so it's a real different activation to really tensing the six-pack and really feeling like you've got a hard stomach. So we're going to run through today how we activate that muscle and how we know if we're doing it correctly. And again, much like the pelvic floor, it works with our breath as well. And actually we can engage that muscle quite easily just by engaging with the pelvic floor. So again, like before, it's easiest to activate and feel this muscle in lying down in our Pilates rest position. So we'll come into that rest position that we talked about in session 1. So knees are bent up, feet are hip width apart. Finding that neutral spine. So just start by just having a little tilt and then find that neutral spine. So your lower back shouldn't be too arched or too flat, and you could just get that little jelly bean underneath your back. Soften down with the ribs. Shoulders are wide, gliding down your spine, and back of the neck is lovely and long, chin ever so slightly tucked. And we'll just start with that breath, so that diaphragmatic breathing we talked about in series 2. So just see if you can find that breath coming deep down into the belly. And exhaling it out. Just get into the rhythm of that breath. So make sure that we're using that diaphragm. Because again, as we said, the core works all together with these muscles rather than in isolation. So then to find our core muscle, we're going to place your fingers onto the bony bits into your hips here. And then we're just going to walk your fingers, so just index finger and middle finger, in and down about an inch, and you should feel a little soft bit in there. And what we're going to imagine on a breath out is that those two bony bits are drawing into each other, as if you're wearing kind of a tight belt. It's just tightening a little bit, okay? So as you breathe out, I just want you to imagine that drawing in towards each other. And then you should feel just a slight little contraction under your fingers there. It shouldn't be too tense. It should just be a little contraction. And then when you inhale, you may feel you lose that a little bit as you're allowing that belly to expand. And then exhale, feeling that contraction again. And you can just check that you're not doing this too much. Because what you don't want to feel is real bulging out underneath your fingers. You just want to feel a slight tightening in. If we think about where those muscles sit, I said they sit like a corset, they're going to draw in towards each other. If you feel that it's really bulging here, or you're bulging with your abdominals, you're probably tensing too much. And you're actually then trying to activate some of the superficial muscles that lay over your transverse abdominis. So one way you can check this is perhaps just placing your hands on your tummy. And you shouldn't feel too much of a contraction on the stomach here. And just moving with the breath, feeling that contraction. You can also have a little play around with this. Some people I find can just activate this core muscle a little bit easier just by activating the pelvic floor. It really depends on person to person. So another way is to find those bony bits again, come in and down an inch. And then as you breathe out, finding that gentle lift with the pelvic floor like we talked about last series. And then you may feel that contraction is a little bit better. It's not too strong, but you're feeling that gentle tightening under your fingers. And again, doing that with each breath out and the breath in. You may feel that release as that belly expands. So have a play around with what works best for you and see whether you can isolate these core deep muscles rather than trying to engage those superficial muscles. Just seeing if you can engage with that breath out. And perhaps feel it release a little bit with that breath in. And we're going to see if we can hold that core for up to about 10 breaths. So we're going to engage with that out breath and see if we can hold and engage that core as we breathe. So it makes it a little bit harder. So we'll take that breath into your belly and exhale. Feel that gentle drawing in, or if you felt you like you can engage it with the pelvic floor, and just find that gentle lift with the pelvic floor. And seeing if you can hold that here as you breathe a little bit more laterally into the rib cage here. So if we breathe into the belly too much, it's a little bit harder to maintain that contraction. Just seeing if you can hold it here. You may lose it a little bit with each breath in. Just try to re-engage with that breath out. And then releasing, either on that in breath or on an out breath, whichever feels best for you. So continue to play around here with engaging and relaxing the core with that pelvic floor and with your breath. Perhaps trying to do some little holds. And then once we've got the hang of engaging all these core muscles, we can start adding in some basic movements. The idea throughout Pilates is that you're using these principles as we move with our breath. Thank you for coming today. If you have any questions about engaging transverse abdominis, your breath, or anything we've covered, please do just drop us an email and we will answer your questions as best as we can.